We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWargaming.com, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk, COVID-19 Quarantine Edition. Well, we're not quarantined yet. Well, kind of. Not fully at Mini Wargaming, but I have a feeling that we'll get there eventually. Is my mic on? We're good? We're good?
Just turn it up a bit.
Turn it up, okay. And so I guess got thrown off by that for a second. So this is the show, if you're new to it, which I doubt most of you are, where you can just ask us questions about whatever you want, and we'll answer them if we decide to. Obviously, we can choose not to. If you're watching this live, I've already opened up the queue, so you can go !ask, space, and then leave your question, and then I'll go through those. If you are not watching this live, then I just remember now I got to pull up those questions. I will be there in just a second, Rooney. Then you can leave the questions on our site for the following week. Yes, cookies are okay. Shows, sit and talk. And Lucas was the last one. And next week is Josh. So if you have questions for him, you can leave that once this is posted. Okay, I should have them all right here. Awesome. Okay, yep, we got a bunch in here. Excelente. Yeah, if you have any questions about audio, looks like it's been good. So let's just jump right into it. Start with a couple questions already from our live viewers. The Art of Caesura. Hey, Matthew. Is that how you say that? Kaizura. Hey, Matthew, you guys are great. I know you're, well, thank you. I know you're a big Dungeons & Dragons fan. I wonder if you ever played any of the Baldur's Gate games on PCs, and if you've heard about or are excited for Baldur's Gate 3. I technically have played Baldur's Gate 2. I've never really been able to get into it. Steve is huge into Baldur's Gate, and I know some of the other guys around here are too. I remember actually buying the game when it first came out, and for some reason I couldn't get into it. But I have a feeling it's one of those games that once you invest enough hours into it, you love it, because it's not very obvious how to play the game. Like when I remember, I'm like, well, it's on iPad now, and I downloaded it for the iPad, and I tried to play it, and I just couldn't figure out the basics, and it was very frustrating. And you know, I had other things to do. I got a lot of things to do, so I just couldn't get into it. I got the PC version later on, and same thing happened. I got a little further, but I was just finding, I started D&D in later editions, so all that THAC0 stuff, when I look at the stats, a lot of it didn't mean anything to me. And so there's a pretty steep learning curve. So no, I didn't get into it. Baldur's Gate 3, though, I'll probably try out, especially if they update it to the more later edition rules of D&D, so that a lot of things are more familiar to me. Like, get rid of that THAC0 system, because I'm still a little confused with exactly how it works. Like, I know how it works when I sit down and put it on paper, but it's not intuitive yet. But it's cool, and I love D&D, and I love Baldur's Gate and the Forgotten Realms, and that's where we do most of our D&Ding. So we're actually heading to Baldur's Gate right now on our current campaign. So I look forward to trying out that game once it does come out. Zipped TV. Hey, Matt, any plans to play some more Gloomspite Gitz in the future? Well, we just literally had a battle report go up where I played Gloomspite Gitz. It was on Tuesday in the Mini Wargaming Vault. It was against the Seraphim. I played Moon Clan, so I had the Gabos, I had the Grots, and I had some Squigs. And so, yeah, I just played them. So, yeah, I totally have plans. I like to rotate through things, unless something's brand new that just came out, and then obviously I want to cover it a lot. I like to rotate through the stuff that I know, just to kind of give myself and you guys the variety. Deadeye Duck. Hey, Matt, I know it isn't all your fault, but can you please cut Crossbones a bit of slack? Poor guy just wants some loot. We're actually filming that today. Yeah, it's interesting. Crossbones has a lot of bad luck, and yet things continue, and experience is still there, and it still progresses. And so it's making. I'll say this: making a narrative campaign for Necromunda has been very interesting. I've never done something for a setting where it pretty much had all the rules already pretty much available for you. Still a lot of work for the arbitrator or dungeon master to do, because obviously I'm not doing always gang versus gang. It's more like gang versus environment, sometimes other gangs. So it's very different balancing mechanics, and I have to worry about balance because, you know, when it's just two people playing against each other competitively, then yeah, if one person wins like crazy, that's fine. But if I beat the crap out of him, then that's not as fun an experience for him, and it's not as enjoyable an experience. But there still needs to be high stakes. So it's always that careful balance. And Necromunda, your guys can die like that. You start with like 1 wound each. And sure, there's the injury die, but it's still possible for you to right away just go out. And that can happen very quickly, especially when everybody's toughness 3, starting with armor that's like 6 up, maybe 5 up if they're really good. But we've been enjoying it, and we're almost done filming. We're going to film today, and then we have 1 more day of filming, and we'll have all 10 episodes done. So you can stay tuned for more of that. But yeah, sometimes Crossbones just has a hard time getting loot. Balfour, Matt, seeing Dave play Tau was interesting. When is the rest of the staff going to step out of their boxes and play armies they don't generally play? Well, see, like, I often pick up new armies. Luca often picks up new armies. Steve and Vito are a little more into stuff they do. Steve tries to get a lot of variety of things, and Vito, well, I'm always like pushing him, go try something else, go try something else. Steve is always willing to try out something else as well. Dave, obviously, he likes to stay within Chaos, and sometimes Blood Angels and sometimes Space Wolves. But yeah, I think that I generally do this all the time. Like when I play 40k or Age of Sigmar, once I start playing the same thing too many times in a row, I get bored and I try to look for something else. So I don't even know what the box that I would have to step into would be. What army would be very unusual for me to play? So if you want to leave that in chat, what army do you think would be unusual for me to play, 40k or Age of Sigmar? Let's see. Any number? Any number? Any number? I'll wait to see. Slaanesh, of course. But you see, like, Slaanesh, sure. But, like, Vito plays that a lot. So I'm not going to go and play an army that somebody else already plays the heck out of. Because we want variety, right? So some of that is just more like, oh, Steve already plays lots of Dark Angels, so I'm not going to play Dark Angels. We've got Vito who plays Slaanesh tons in Age of Sigmar, so I'm not going to touch that. Not because I'm worried about treading on his army, but it's more just because I want a variety. Attack Gypsies. Hey, Matt, any idea what is going to happen with Necrons in Psychic Awakening? They haven't been covered yet. I can answer that really simply. No. No idea. It's been so many releases that I'm just trying my best to keep up with what's come out. And I don't have any ideas what they're going to do for Necrons. Sorry. It would be cool if they did some of the same treatment, like build your own, Tomb World, here's some extra stratagems. Like if all they do for each of them, if all they did for each of them was build your own thing, here's some stratagems, here's some new relics, here's some new psychic powers for the ones that have psychic powers, a few things like that, then that's actually pretty cool updates. War Pigment, are we going to see another epic table in the foreseeable future? There's no plans to make another one. Lee, unfortunately, no longer works here, and he's the one that made the last one. So, no plans to make another epic table. Still getting new terrain in. Like we got some cool new Dwarven Forge stuff here that we haven't yet really showed off, which is really neat because it comes apart into a million pieces. It's pretty nifty. You can see that, right? Boom. Oh, that fell out. It's supposed to fall out, though. That's the top of this. So I can...
Played with it for a whole sit and talk.
Did he play for a whole sit and talk? All right, well, that's fine. Like while talking. Yeah, Steve likes to fiddle with things while he talks. B. Moser, what's the next campaign? Well, we have a Path to Glory between all 4. It's not me. It's Dave, Steve, Luca, and Vito did a Chaos Path to Glory for Warhammer 40k, which will start to come out next Thursday. We have a Blood Bowl Season 3 is coming out this Friday, in which I totally keep my cool and have no salt at all. And those are the next 2 that are new. Well, we have Draft to Glory starting next week. That's less of a campaign as it is more like a fun little system. So that's when we play Age of Sigmar and we choose a bunch of different armies and then we get assigned a random army from that. So you don't get to pick your army at all. Like for example, my army contains Stormcast Eternals, specifically the Warrior Chamber, and Trogoths and Ale Guzzler Gargants. What else did it have? There was no death in it. What was the chaos one that I had? Oh yeah, Nurgle Mortals. And one more thing. What was it? Something from Destruction. No, I already said the Trolls and that. I don't remember what the other one is now. Brain. We've played it like last week, and I've played a bunch of things since then. But yeah, like that. So we choose a bunch of things. Sometimes it's sub-armies if the armies are too big. And then I randomly generate armies for everybody. And then between games, you randomly kind of draft up. So we start at 1,000 points, then we draft up to 1,250, then 1,500, then 2,000. And just kind of, you get points for winning, and major and minor victories, whoever has the most points at the end wins. It's not really, who cares who wins? It's more just the fun of, here's a weird assortment of stuff, and make it work. The Darkest Stig, how are you enjoying Necromunda so far? Any recommendations for someone just starting to get into it? I think Necromunda is a great system. I haven't played a competitive league. I've played a bunch of games, just one-off, and now I'm doing a very special narrative campaign where I'm an arbitrator or a dungeon master, putting a player through the ringer of building a weird gang. If you're getting started, so this was confusing to me at first. A lot of games are like this, where you're like, and Blood Bowl was the same thing. It's like, what do I need to get if I'm getting into it? Because there's quite a few books out now. I think there's 6 books out in total, plus a starter set. So if you're just getting books, if you're going to get the starter set, then obviously that gives you a bunch of new models and tokens and stuff. I recommend getting the starter set regardless because of all the tokens, and it gives you a quasi rule book. I think it's the Dark Uprising one, which includes things from the Book of Peril and all of that. But if you're just getting books, you need the Necromunda rulebook and the Gangs of the Underhive book. That's your starting point. The Necromunda rulebook has all the rules for running the game and running leagues. The Necromunda, or Gangs of the Underhive, gives you the rules for the 6 main gangs, like Escher, Goliath, the Lack, so on and so forth. And then if you want to play one of the special gangs, like Palanite Enforcers, or the Corpse Grinder Cult, or Gene Stealer Cult, or Chaos, or Build Your Own Venator one, that's where you have to go to the other books. So if you're just looking for one of the 6 regular ones, all you need is the rulebook and Gangs of the Underhive. Now, as an arbitrator, or somebody running a league, every book is interesting because they give you additional arbitrator tools, environments, like the Book of Peril lets you play out in the bad zones. The Book of Ruin introduces your cults, like Chaos cults and Gene Stealer cults. So now that I know that, I know where to find everything, but it was really hard at first. So I recommend starter set, and then you would also get the Gangs of the Underhive book then, because the starter set will have the rule book plus some stuff from the Book of Perils. The one in the older Necromunda starter box is not good. Right. It's technically still good. They came out with like rule book and then Gang War 1, Gang War 2, Gang War 3, Gang War 4. All those technically, no, you know what? No, it's not still good. The basic rules are still good, but they totally revamped the campaign system, thankfully, because it was awful. That was my big gripe with it at first. The rules were fine. They were solid. But the campaign system was so watered down, I missed the crunchiness of the old ones. Well, they brought back a lot of the crunchiness of the old ones, especially now that a lot of the gangs are out, so you have access to the good trading post and all of that. So I would say that your older Necromunda starter box one is good for the basic rules, but it's no good for the campaign and for all the gangs as well. So you're still going to want to get the Gang of the Underhive. Whew. Mr. Fudgy, Matt, is there a way you can pay for the vault monthly instead of a one-off yearly fee? Yeah, that was one of the options when you were checking out. You could pay monthly or yearly. You save money if you pay yearly. I think it's, you pay for 9 months or 10 months and you get the year. But yeah, when you're checking out, the first thing you choose is bronze or silver. The silver has everything, so all your tutorials, battle reports, narrative campaigns, behind the scenes, all of that. Bronze removes all the tutorials. So there's a library of something like 1,200 painting, terrain, conversion tutorials, airbrushing, magnetizing, all that kind of stuff. That's for silver members only. But if you're just looking for the basic stuff, narrative campaigns, battle reports, behind the scenes, then that's the bronze. And then the second option is to choose to pay monthly or yearly. And monthly is technically more expensive if you stick around for 12 months. So yeah, that is in there. Zipped TV, how is COVID-19 going to affect mini wargaming? Oh, I don't know exactly how it's going to affect us. I have some theories. I'm pretty sure that it's going to make its way through most of Canada and infect lots and lots of people. We're doing the best we can to slow it, but it seems almost inevitable that it's going to affect a lot of people. And so right now it is affecting us because we had to shut down events, we had to shut down the gaming hall, and it also is just kind of making life weird because like right now my kids are all at home, and so my wife has all 4 of my kids at home every day, and so that adds a bit of stress to life, I must say. And they can't even do all the fun stuff that they would want to do in their home because you're not supposed to go everywhere and congregate with lots of people. Right now in Canada, at least in Ontario, they've shut down like recreational businesses, groups of 50 or more. I can't remember exactly what it is because we were already doing some of that stuff before. Sit-down restaurants, like, which I wouldn't want to go to right now anyways. Like, it was sad because my brother and sister-in-law and their kids came from Nova Scotia just the other day, and I didn't really go and see them, and they got that. They're like, yeah, we get it. Because it's like you just traveled, you went through an airport. And so it's just, that kind of stuff sucks. Now, in the future, if the government mandates that we are not allowed to come into work, that's obviously going to be a bit of a problem because our work can't really be done from home. Like some of it can, like Colin can edit from home, and so can our other editor, Kevin, and Erin can do most of her work from home, and Mike can do a lot of his work from home, but the main work, which is, well, not the main work, but making the product, which is filming battle reports, you can't really do that from home without getting somebody else to come into your home. And then you have bad lighting, bad terrain. Yeah, you still got your miniatures and stuff. And I got kids running around in the background. Like, we can't. And so we've been trying to come up with ideas because we just feel like there's an inevitability. Soon, we're not going to be able to work. And whether that soon is in a month or next week, who knows? Every day, they just keep announcing more stuff. So I'm just waiting for that 1 p.m. announcement where they're like, oh, by the way, we have to shut down. And I don't know. It also sucks, too, because it's not like we're swimming in money right now. We put out that video a few months ago about say, hey, we're having trouble. We're trying to grow, and we've been struggling, and we're doing our best, and we're going to make some changes. And our community has responded admirably and has helped us a lot. But we're not out of that trouble yet. It's just that now, if nobody had responded but those few months ago, we'd already be at the point now where we'd be laying off people. And it's the fact that we haven't yet says that we've been getting a lot more help. But it's still not all there yet. We still have to make up for years of stagnation and trying to build that back up. And so if all of a sudden we disappeared for 2 months and couldn't make content, I have a hard time believing that we would still get tons of people sign up to the Vault if we're not putting out new content. So, and StarMech says, what about Tabletop Simulator for battle reports from home? Like, nobody here even knows how to use Tabletop Simulator, so it'd be a whole new... Luca does, okay. So it would be and I remember trying it once and it being kind of not great. I don't think that's going to be the answer. So I don't know. We'll have to think. We'll have to come up with something else. Maybe Skyping in some role-playing shows, or it just won't be the same. So I feel like it's inevitable that's going to happen. So we're just trying to film as much as we can in the meantime and do what we can. Heisey Lowy, have you ever thought of doing a Train a Noob series where regular casters adopt a noob and teach them to tabletop? We do have a How to Play series. So that's the closest we've come to that. And we do plan on doing more How to Play series. Andui, how will COVID-19 affect the other mini wargaming content creators? Well, I think I covered that pretty well. That's essentially the same question. Balfour, coming back probably to my question of who else would I play. For you, Guard or Dark Eldar? And AOS, perhaps Stormcast. Been a while for them on the board. I know Vito just played a game of Stormcast, so you'll see them soon. Imperial Guard, I've played a bunch of times. Dark Eldar, yeah, not really. We have a bit of a Dark Eldar army here, but yeah, I guess that would be one that I, in the past, definitely didn't like. I tolerate them now. Stormcast Eternals, I've played them quite a bit, so I'm familiar with them. Nico, any plans for more Dark Heresy? No, not right now. If we were to do more 40k RPGs, we'd probably do Wrath and Glory. Kind of waiting for Cubicle 7 to, it's them, right? Cubicle 7. To get the revamped rulebook out and see what else they come out with. Because that original rulebook was just so poorly put together, it's so hard to use. And just in case they come out with anything else, any other supplements and stuff to help out. The Darkest Dig, I second Matt playing Eldari, Craftworld Jakari, or Yanari. I tried playing Craftworld Eldar, and I did play a game or two with them, and I just found them... I don't know, I think it's the models. I think one of the reasons I love Age of Sigmar right now is I just love the models so much more than 40k. And the Eldari models, especially Craftworld, they're so old that they're no longer that interesting. So maybe that's it. I don't know. Okay, let's jump over to our questions posted from before. Chica So ask first off, how has Nurgle impacted mini wargaming? Any contingency plans in place? Have you considered a conference call, bat rep? So I've talked about all that stuff. So the Rise of Crossbones is a pretty interesting campaign. I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops. Thank you. I'm curious about your perspectives personally and as a content creator, since you also dungeon master outside of work, on what the role of the dungeon master is and the narrative decisions you take. You said before that narrative campaigns have had higher signups than other content, so good for business, but that the non-wargaming content like D&D and Wrath and Glory didn't meet expectations. That's correct, and wasn't justifiable. You've also noted that there isn't a formula for what will take off and what won't. So within the context, where do these perspectives differ and align, and how do you make decisions when needed? Does Rise of Crossbones mandate that Crossbones will rise? There's a couple questions in there, obviously. What's the role of the Dungeon Master for the narrative decisions you take? Well, the Dungeon Master makes all the narrative decisions, I guess. I know the players contribute big to that. When it comes to narrative campaigns, though, it's definitely a more railroady. I tell them this is what's happening next, because that's how they run. It's more like you're going through a single-player computer game that's not open-ended. It's more just like, here's your next mission. And we'll take what they do in their missions to affect future missions, especially the story, but they don't necessarily have control over what happens next. Whereas when you're playing a role-playing game, you tend to have a bit more open-worldness to it. Even then, though, not always. Just depends on which campaign that you're doing. Now, as for the question about knowing what will make, when I say both things like there's never a formula for knowing what'll work, and then saying, but these things probably won't work and these things probably will work, all that is true. See, the thing is, it's kind of like if you look at Hollywood movies, the producers and directors that are experienced will both say that they have no idea if a movie will do well, and they'll also have a good idea if a movie will do well. Meaning that they've seen enough movies, they've made enough movies to have an intuition as to what they need to do to make a good movie. The problem, though, is that there are so many variables in place that you often get too many X factors to be able to make a perfect decision. But there are some things that are kind of, I would consider, cheats. Like obviously, like you look at Michael Bay and making like the Transformer movies and all that. You know, you say what you will for or against them. I think that mostly there weren't any good, but they all made a lot of money. And so there was a formula there that no matter what the critics say, no matter what I say, he made lots of money. And so he's figured out some sort of formula. I don't know whether he's happy with that formula or whether he's like, oh, I need to buy another house, so I guess I'll make another Transformers movie. And in the meantime, that can fund me making the movies that I want to make. I'm not sure what he thinks about that kind of stuff. But I feel like, yeah, there's certain things that when I can see a trailer for something and have a good idea of whether or not it's going to be a decent movie or not. And they probably, when they fund a movie, have a good idea whether it'll make them money or not. They just have no idea. There's that huge margin of error, right? Like Black Panther had to have been a surprise to them, because you saw how little a role Black Panther played in Avengers Infinity Wars. Because if they knew that it was going to perform as well as it did, they would have him be more of a central figure in Infinity Wars. Maybe. Either way, I think that was a surprise to everybody. There's always things like that. You know the Avengers movies are going to do well, money-wise, but you don't know if that means that they're going to be a good movie. Iron Man 1, I think, surprised everybody of how good it was, because classically comic book movies weren't always, they were pretty hit and miss. But then Iron Man 2 was and Iron Man 3 was But then you get the rest of the series. You got like the Thor series. Those were pretty good, all of them. Some better than others. But then you go back to the Hulk one. Like, how many times did they reboot that guy before they finally got to where it is right now? And so I just kind of see that. You kind of don't know until you put it out. But at the same time, you usually know what'll definitely not work and what'll definitely work. But there's a heck of a lot of everything else. And the problem is, what'll definitely work is not something that you can necessarily just take and repeat. Like, for example, I can say with fair confidence that anytime I do a Death Watch narrative campaign, they do well. But I can't do just Death Watch narrative campaigns, because then they will no longer do as well. So I need to do other stuff too. I can also say that most likely if I do a role-playing game show, it's not going to do that well. We've tried half a dozen of them, and not one of them has really performed at all well when it comes to views or vault signups. People love them. That's not to say people don't like them. That's not to say that they're not good. It's just there's been plenty of campaigns that I've done where I've been disappointed in how they performed, and yet everybody who watches them leaves their comments about how much they just gloat over, or not gloat, they just gush over how much they love it. So it's really hard to know, and it's entertainment, and it's not always logical. It's very emotional. It could also just happen to be hitting at the right time, or who knows what. So it's a constant, frustrating challenge to know what to do next. Like our Age of Sigmar battle report that went on Tuesday did incredibly well for Vault signups. And I look at it and I'm like, why? Well, and you can say every reason you think, but I could take all those reasons and be like, yeah, but this one had all of those things too. And yet, why did the one on Tuesday get way more views than our typical ones? The thumbnail wasn't that much different. It's new Seraphim, but we've had new stuff before, lots of times. Heck, even new Seraphim. And it's just, so it's not always obvious. You can kind of get some of the variables, but not all of them. So it's hard. It's frustrating. I'm very mathematical, so I want a mathematical formula, but when it comes to entertainment, it's not always that obvious. Negrom29. Any thoughts on doing a follow-up review of the Gloomspite Gits or Auric Warclans now that you've played them beyond a first impression? Any thoughts or preferences on 40k competitive play versus AOS competitive play? We do plan on kind of continuing with these retrospective reviews as we have time, and I'll definitely do Gloomspite Gits and Auric Warclans eventually. As for preferences for 40k competitive versus AOS, I'm huge more into AOS right now. 40k is kind of, I think it's just been the Space Marines that have kind of killed a lot of the interest for me. I still like 40k, still love playing it, but if you're going to bring Space Marines, I'm just going to be like, oh, whatever, I guess I'm going to get steamrolled. I haven't had a good game against Space Marines for a long time, and there's a lot of Space Marines out there. And, you know, I am competitive, but I'm not a competitive player, meaning I don't like go out there and research perfect lists and go to tournaments and all of that. I like a good game, and so that to me, that's part of that's in the list building, but a lot of it's the tactics on the board. So when one team can just literally delete 3/4 of your army with the first shooting phase, to me, there's not really tactics there. That kind of erases that. Age of Sigmar is not perfect, of course, but I tend to always see the games go longer than with 40k, which is a weird thing to say because AOS has the potential double turn, so it's always been like yeah, but AOS can be over by turn 2. I have played several games of 40k now that were done by the first half of the first turn. And so, yeah, I'm not enjoying 40k as much right now. Hoping to see some big shakeups and everything, but we'll find out. And I'll still keep playing it. Still happy to play it. It's just if I have to choose between the two, it'd be Age of Sigmar, hands down. I am Semple. Hey Matt, hope you're doing well. Thank you. Is there any chance of another narrative campaign for Age of Sigmar similar to Dragontooth Labyrinth? Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely do more along those lines where it's army versus armies. Always enjoy watching yourself and Luca play through those types of games. Yeah, we'll definitely do more like that. I think the next one I'm going to do will be 40k, and it will be an army versus army, or maybe Death Watch, but we'll see. Miso. Matt, have you now finished your D&D campaigns? If you did, how were the finales? We did. We finished both Tomb of Annihilation and Curse of Strahd, both coincidentally in the same week. I don't really want to share stories about how it ended, because I don't want to give spoilers to anybody who might be interested in Tomb of Annihilation or Curse of Strahd. All I can say is that it was great. I really liked how they both ended. I think that they're both fantastic modules, very incredibly different from each other, require a very different approach for the Dungeon Master and the players, but they're both fantastic. I can see why when everybody's always ranking the different modules, Tomb of Annihilation and Curse of Strahd are always vying for first place, because they're both great. And have they changed how you think about how to do narratives at all after doing the 2 best adventures of 5th edition? Narrative campaign mission? Not really. Narrative campaigns are so different from playing role-playing games that, yeah. Speaking of narratives, what are your plans going forward? I asked Dave, and he said that you guys are doing it on a passion basis. That's what we always done, though. We never know 6 months in advance what we're doing. Because if I say this is what I want to do in 6 months, I'll no longer care about it. I'll care about something else instead. Yeah. Love the Necromunda one, it's very cool. Love the idea of going on a journey, dragging yourself up from the lowest rung. Anywhere in your home game after these Dungeons & Dragons adventures, will you take a break? Oh no. Well, unless we're forced to because of the coronavirus. We've already started the next campaign after Tomb Annihilation. We're going to do some Ghost of Saltmarsh style stuff, but I'm linking it in with where we are at. Luca's still working on what we're going to do next after the Curse of Strahd, so I'm not sure what we're doing there. Baldur's Gate 3. And weight loss, is that going on? Is that going okay? I'm serious on it now because of the coronavirus. I haven't done very well for my weight loss for the past few months, but I'm not seriously overweight. I'm not in that category of the people who are at risk because of the coronavirus. Seriously, COVID-19. One of the at risk is people who are obese. Just like I think also people that smoke, anybody with respiratory stuff, the elderly. There's a big list. But yeah. Best dude, miso miso. P.S. Thank you for answering these questions and still producing content. Very tough times at the moment in Europe. I think it's important to keep going if you can. No, I agree. We'll do our best while trying to keep safe. That's the weird. It's hard. Like if I had tons of money in the bank, I would just shut down for 2 or 3 months right now and be like, hey guys, let's just be safe. But we don't. So if we did that, we'd go out of business. There would be no reopening at the end. So that's the hard part, right? Lachlan Clark. Hi Matthew, with the release of Age of Sigmar Soulbound role-playing game this year, are you interested to see what lore will be expanded upon in the realm of Akshi? And would you consider filming a one-shot session for Mini Wargaming to try out the game? P.S. Loving the new format for your battle reports. Thank you. I definitely want to play that role-playing game. I'll admit I'm a little less interested in it now that I know it's just more like hero-based. Like you get to play as a Stormcast Eternal or as, all these high-level things. I was hoping more for a role-playing game a la D&D. Not necessarily like D&D because I wanted to play. It's not so much the rules of D&D, but more like you're just kind of a low-level person or a low-level Duerden or a low-level elf. But it's like, no, you can play a Stormcast Eternal. So it's probably going to feel more like Wrath and Glory, where it's like, yeah, you could play low-level, but you could play alongside a Space Marine. And obviously, the Space Marine is going to have a lot of advantages. But I am still very interested in playing it, mainly because I think role-playing in the Age of Sigmar universe would be really cool. And yes, I know you can just take the D&D rules and go there, but why should I do all the work? Somebody else can do all the work. And I'm interested in playing different systems too. Are we going to film it? I plan to. I hope to. So I'm always going to continue to push and try to do role-playing content here because I love it so much. It's just how often we can do it will be based on how well it does. Mylin, Matthew, first, what are you reading currently? I'm actually reading the last Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe book. It's called The Last Battle. Just recently rewatched all the movies, and then that made me want to read it. I've read some of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe books before as a kid, but I never actually read them all, and so I just jumped to the last one because I was interested in reading that one. Next, do you anticipate coronavirus? Oh yeah, we already talked about that. Okay, Duelist Cannon. Hi Matt, would it be possible to add the army list to the descriptions of each battle report video? Obviously it's possible. There's any number of things that are possible. It's more just the time. And I know you might think, well, that doesn't seem like it'd take a lot of extra time, but you'd be surprised. All those little details, how much of a difference they can make. Not that we'll never do that, but right now there's no plans. I think one of the things that would make it easier, 40K would be easier because then you just output the battle scribe list, right? But like Age of Sigmar, like when I use the AOS app, for example, it's not as easy just to output something and copy and paste it. So, but maybe we'll see. Metal Michael. Hello, Matt. The quality of the videos was a learning curve. The first week was pretty shaky. It slowly, instead of imitating others, becomes the higher quality Mini Wargaming videos that are now produced. Thank you. How do you think, as a business owner, Mini Wargaming is doing now that you haven't had guests coming in for a while? Not having guests has been both a challenge and a benefit. The challenge, of course, is that we're lower on manpower because now it takes 2 people a day to film a battle report rather than 1 person one day with a guest to film a battle report. That's the challenge. It is way easier to plan because with the guests coming in, it was very sporadic. It'd be like, and not that we didn't have a lot of them, it was just more when they'd come. Like for 3 days, now we have so many people. And then for 2 days, we have nothing. And then for a day, we got 1 guy. And then this next day, we have 2 guys. And this other guy. And it was very hard to plan and structure what we're going to be doing and fit the content that we needed in. With everybody just not having guests, it's a lot easier to dictate. Obviously, there's still sicknesses and stuff, but it's a lot easier to plan weeks in advance what we're going to be doing. So it has its pros and cons. I'm kind of it's fortunate that we stopped having guests coming in because we'd have to cancel them all anyways. So that worked out. How it's going to work in the future, not 100% sure yet. Nerm. Hi Matt, loving the new content. The quality has definitely gone up. Thank you. It is a question, but just not a question, but just some feedback. Unfortunately, I'm having a lot of issues with the sound. A lot of the videos sound very quiet. The intro is super loud, and the talking it often too quiet, meaning I have to crank it. Then die when I start the new video. Love the narrative stuff, especially Necromando campaign. Poor Vito, keep it up. We're still working on the sound stuff. I've purchased some new equipment, and it's taken a long time to come in because I don't think what we're using is ideal for what we're trying to pull off. And I've tweaked and prodded and poked, and Colin and I have gone through lots of frustrations in trying to get this to work. I think audio is just a bane.
We're doing it also on such a scale, so many people.
Yeah, we're doing it with so many people. We're still having interference problems as well. But I got some new equipment coming in that I feel confident will help. I hope.
It'll be extra work, but it'll help.
Yeah, but it's continues. I keep getting emails saying it keeps going on back order. So and then that's only one set just to try out, and if it works, then we'll order another set so that yeah. So I apologize. We're going to continue to do our best, but unfortunately, our current audio setup is not the best, and there's no easy way to improve that until we get that new stuff in. I already talked about that. Darkstar, hey Matt, would you be willing to do a How to Play Horus Heresy series? All the videos I have found on the subject focus on the discontinued betrayal at Kelth and burning the Prospero boxes, not the game itself. Well, if you go back, we have a How to Play Warhammer 40k 7th edition, and that's the same thing. So if you go back and watch that, that's how you play Horus Heresy. Now the only difference would be how you build armies, but even then it's pretty much the same as 7th edition. So that's all there. Yeah, that's the same question. Yeah, so I've already answered those questions. Okay, let's go back to our live chat. Yes, we have some more questions here. The Darkest Dig. Will anyone pick up the new High Elves? The Pointy Elves is the official name. Once they come out. Lore Masters of Hoth or Hoeth, or whatever they're called. It's Pointy Elves. That's all you have to remember. Pointy Elves. Steve is definitely interested in those. And if he wasn't, I would be. So yeah, you'll see them. It was not right away, obviously, because it'll take us some time. Unlike when there's just a new book released and we can take our old models. This one we have to get a bunch of stuff painted up. Andrew Octobeard, are you familiar with STOD? S-T-O-D.
Slaves to Darkness.
Okay. I'm like, context. Slaves of Darkness. I'm struggling to play with them. True, I don't have much experience in Age of Sigmar. Some advice could be really helpful. Slaves of Darkness struggle a bit. There are some ways to play them. Like, obviously, there's certain things that are pretty awesome. Like, the basic Marauder is pretty good. Now that the way that they charge is ridiculous. And in fact, they roll 2 dice and then turn one of them into a 6. Minimum 7-inch charge. Super powerful. Super, super powerful. But no, I'm not the one that plays Slaves of Darkness. Excuse me for a second. I keep scratching my nose because it's itchy, not because I have COVID-19. I'm going to wash my hands after this, but it's just bothering me. I got to scratch. Oh, there we go. Nice rough paper towel. Nothing like rough paper towel to scratch your nose with and pick your nose with. Oh, yeah, there we go. Man, I see the average person touches their face 6 times a minute. I think I'm like 20 to 25 times a minute. And so, oh, there we go. It's just so itchy right now. And every time I think not to, then it just gets itchier. So I can't give you much advice for them because I haven't really played them much. But I do know that they're definitely not one of the higher tier, so it'll be a little more difficult. But unfortunately, I don't have anything I can help you with there. Except, no. I'm trying to think of the few games that I played against them. And no. Sorry. Bluestra89. Since you're DMing, are you familiar with Starfinder? I know what Starfinder is, but I am not familiar with it. Prepping my group to drop this game on them, taking them through the first module, but wanting... The rest of it disappeared. I don't know how far back I gotta go. Oh, and then somebody leaves a comment. Yeah, it was you. Colin. You made my chat go all the way back to the bottom.
I'm the worst.
You are. So I'm not familiar with Starfinder. I know what it is. It's just basically Pathfinder, but in space. But I'm not even familiar with Pathfinder, except that I know that it's 3.5-ish, based on that edition. So sorry, have no advice for that. Marshy 3096, with a new Seraphim out, would you have plans to get a Dread Saurian for mini wargaming? 36 wounds now. No plans, but it is pretty cool. It is pretty darn cool. We don't have a Dread Saurian, right? Yeah, I didn't think so. Hack'em Slash, when are you going to do a new Deathwatch campaign? I already talked about that a little bit, but no current plans, but that doesn't mean that you won't see one in like 4 weeks, because that's how quickly something could happen. I want to do another 40k narrative campaign soon, but let me get the one done. I'm currently like working on 3 different campaigns right now. Like we're doing, I'm filming Blood Bowl, Draft to Glory, I'm doing Necromunda, so, and trying to survive COVID-19 and kids at home, and not going to Adepticon, which is a bummer, but yeah, so I don't know yet. Cerny Bucks, what is the best way to get into 40k? Is it by buying the starter set, start collecting, or just individual boxes? It depends. It depends on what you want to get into. If the starter box has the army or armies that you are interested in, yeah, it's a great place to start. If it doesn't, no. You don't need all the extras. Unlike when you like get a Necromunda or a Blood Bowl, you don't need all those extra tokens and things. You can buy your own dice, you can buy your own measuring tape. You don't need templates and stuff for that anymore. And so, if you're getting into 40k, starter set if you like the army, especially if you have a friend who likes the other army, because then you can split the cost, although there's only one rule book in there. But obviously you're going to need a rule book, and you're going to need the codex for whatever army you want to play. And that's really all you need. Now, for most armies now, there's some supplemental stuff in Psychic Awakening, or like Vigilist, those kind of things. But when you're first getting into it, yeah, the books are necessary. Now, depending on the army, what models you buy, the start collecting box sets are a good value, and they usually have the things that you want. I know for Tau, for example, I think if you buy 3 or 4 start collecting boxes, you actually have a very solid 2,000 point list. And Steve was talking about that. I think Tau are the exception to that. I don't think most of them you can do that. I think you usually have to buy some other things. It just so happens that the Tau, that what's in their start collecting box is like core stuff that's really good. And and it has a lot of options within that core stuff. So you have to kind of look at the army that you want to play, which I can't answer the question, what army should I play, because it needs to be whatever is interesting for you. And the start collecting boxes, and then kind of just go from there. And you know, if you're just getting into it, just get the start collecting box. Paint that up, play a couple of test games with it, and then decide what you're going to get next. Because there's a lot of different options for most of the armies, and there's a lot of different good options. If you're not just going to build the one jerk list from the internet, which will just get meted out in 6 months anyways, so don't do that. Base it off of what you think is interesting. Midgard Painter, hey, any thoughts on a multiplayer narrative Horus Heresy campaign where people turn traitor but don't reveal it until narrative deems right to do so? Sounds cool, but Horus Heresy is just not that hot right now. People aren't watching it quite as much. But that is an interesting idea. Why don't we maybe explore in the future? The Darkest Dig. If I can make a request, you can. It would be for the occasional Apocalypse game. I love the AOS 40k and assorted games like Narrative, Warcry, etc. But you've made too long a post, Darkest Stig. Let's see if I can find it before somebody else posts a comment. Here it is. But miss huge games every now and again. I will keep that in mind. Mad Chafade. Any signs of the open vault coming back? Haven't we just been posting those?
They've been in the vault. So.
They're only in the vault, which is what they were always intended to be. So yeah, those are back. They haven't been perfectly every week.
There is one this Saturday.
But there is one coming out. Yeah, there's one coming out this Saturday. So Dave's been doing those, and we've almost had them weekly. Val 4, will there be more painting competitions between Steve and Vito? No, the Iron Brush is no longer going to move forward. It just wasn't working the way we wanted it to, and it was taking too much effort for what it was outputting, and not enough people were watching it too. All those things put together. Bram Motor Coke. Whatever. Matt, are you a dog or a cat person? Not really. No. If I had to choose, see, I like dogs more, but I don't like living with them. If I had to have one of them in my house, I have a cat right now. We've had dogs, and I never want a dog again, ever. And I will never allow one again, ever, in our house. No, just no. The mess, the smell, the annoyance. I've got 4 kids. I already get all that. So, I don't need another one. Dogs are perpetual 3-year-olds. They never grow up. So you got, for 13 years to 15 years, you've got a 3-year-old. Cats are okay. I would choose not to have a cat too, though. This is kitty litter and...
Callie's so nice.
Callie, sure, I like the animals. I just don't want to live with them. I think if I was a bachelor, I'd probably have a cat. If I didn't have kids, maybe I'd have a cat, but never a dog again. It's funny too because I grew up with dogs, cats, rabbits, all that, and I thought I was an animal lover. I'm like, oh yeah, I love these things. But once I became an adult and I had to take care of it, screw that. StarMech. So Matt, you've played a few games against the new Seraphim. What are some things you wish they got or wasn't nerfed when it didn't need it? I wasn't hugely familiar with the old Seraphim. I know Steve cried like a little baby about a lot of things about the Seraphim. It's so sad that it's all not as good as it used to be. He had one 2,000 point list. Anyways, but now he's actually been playing them more and getting into it and enjoying them more. And Steve, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I love you. Anyways, but for me, I don't know. I played against them a couple times and they seem kind of fun. If Steve hadn't wanted to be the one to pick them up, I totally would have played them and enjoyed them. And so, especially like the one thing that he's been trying out is like tons of endless spells. And I love the fact that they're actually useful for an army because they're garbage for everybody else. Unless they're like their army-specific endless spells or the super broken Judgments of Khorne, which I hate. It's just, he had the right idea, Games Workshop, for endless spells, and then he broke it all. So, it's just too bad. Throwlash Gaming. Any advice for someone who hasn't played 40k or Age of Sigmar in about a year on how to get reacquainted with the games? Well, first off, bad timing. Because with COVID-19 around, you shouldn't be gathering in gaming halls. But that's what I would do. If it wasn't for the virus, I'm just going to call it the virus, then I would say go to your local gaming store or find friends who play it and just play some games. Pull out your old models and play games. That's about it. If you're alone and there's nobody around that's going to play it, well, you're going to have a much more uphill battle because then you got to get people into it. Like, what do you need to buy? Well, it depends. 40k, I already talked about that. Age of Sigmar, the needs are actually even less because what you can do if you have an iPad, for example, is get the AOS app. I'm assuming, do they have that app for Android too?
Which?
The AOS one?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. I never even thought of it. I just don't use Androids. Nothing against Androids. I just don't use them. So yeah, get the AOS app, pay the $1 something a month.
39, I think.
Well, that's Canadian. It might just be $1 American. I don't know, whatever. Pay the $1 to $2 a month. That gets you access to building armies and stuff. And then in the app, purchase the army books so that it unlocks the battalions and stuff. And you don't even have to have physical books. I still like to buy the physical book though, because I just like holding it in my hand. Hands. Sorry, I have two hands. And then model-wise, once again, it goes back to the same thing. If there's a starter set that has armies that you like, get it. Otherwise, the start collecting boxes are usually a good place to start. But what you need is the rules and models, obviously. Dix51. It's DYX. I knew what I was saying before I said it, but I was just like, maybe it'll sound better when I put 51 on the end. It didn't. Hey, Matt. Hello, Matt. I know you say time is a factor at times, yet why do you and Dave have so little battles between each other? Seems to be the mini wargaming elders. Oh, here. It seems to me the mini wargaming elders would battle weekly. There's a few reasons for that. One being that, yeah, time is a factor, that we're always working on different projects. Two is because we like each other and we want to continue to like each other. And the way we both play, we have to. It's very easy for us to butt heads. And yeah, those are the main reasons actually. It just doesn't. He's playing only 40k right now, and I'm playing a lot. Like I do play 40k as well, but since he only plays 40k, that means that I will need to play more Age of Sigmar, and then we try to play in campaigns together. We try to head up different campaigns. So. Virtus DB, what do you think are GW's plans for this year about 40k after Psychic Awakening? I've always said that 9th edition would be great, but I have no idea. No inside information from this guy. Like, I don't have any, that's what I'm trying to say. Andrew Octobeard, if you want to do a 40k kill team campaign, what are the difficulties you have to watch out for? You mean like you? Well, I can say this, you can replace that with any campaign. The biggest difficulty you're going to have running any campaign with your local group of whatever is just getting them together. That's the hardest thing. I have that huge advantage that I'm paying people to do this. They're forced to be my friend because I'm paying them to be so. But for you though, yeah, keeping people interested. So I always say that if I were to run campaigns outside of this, which I haven't really done, by the way, I did a long time ago when we had our store, but I would keep them short, like really short seasons, or have them loose enough that people can drop in and out. So that's the biggest difficulty you're going to have. Try not to make the rules too complex, because it'll just make it harder for people to get into. You'll know all the rules, but trust me, you're just going to have to explain them a million times to everybody else. Alliance Open. Matt, I loved the Triumph and Treachery videos. Any chance you could put up an Age of Sigmar Triumph and Treachery video? Maybe like customize the deck to... It was too long. Customize the deck to make it suitable for AOS. Well, Age of Sigmar does have Triumph and Treachery. So you could totally do that. I think we have had Triumph and Treachery for Age of Sigmar. But no current plans to do it. Once again, it comes down to resources as well. We're just working like mad to keep up with our schedule. So things where it's like all of a sudden you take one day to film one battle report with everybody, that's a little harder sell, right? That's also why we don't play Apocalypse as much too, because it's usually 2 days to film one of those. The Darkest Dig. Forget cats and dogs. Which D&D familiar is your favorite? Whoa, that's hard. It depends on the character I'm creating. There's not one that I'll say, yeah, for sure. Like obviously, like functionally, one that can fly is great because then you can do the whole scouting thing. But I find myself when I make D&D characters, yeah, there's certain things I want to min-max. Like I want to make sure that like my main fighting ability, my main spellcasting ability is as good as it can be. But then after that, I like to play around with more interesting things. And so, and you can change your familiar too, but when you recast it. So I don't know. I'm not sure which familiar. It would depend on my character. Is my character a cat person? Then I'd have a cat familiar. Are they like a raven person and they're all goth? I'd have a raven. Yeah, so I'm not sure. If I like Matthew, what is your favorite familiar? I like a lot of the different ideas. Mad Chafade, any thoughts on Duncan Rhodes setting up his own channel, strangely called Painting Academy? Why is it strange? Duncan's all about painting. You think he's saying because we had a painting academy? I hate to say it, but Painting Academy is pretty darn generic. That's like saying, oh, did you hear about the other high school? They have the word school in their name. I think they're copying you. It's like, Painting Academy is pretty straightforward, and Duncan obviously is known for painting. What do I think? I think it's great. Good luck, Duncan. It's tough, but I know he's got a good head start, given the fact that he obviously has built up a following by working for Games Workshop. I wish him the best, and I hope that he does well. That's what I think. I'm glad that he started right off the bat with a membership site. I think that's smart. Okay, don't just try to build up your audience for a couple of years and then try to sell them a membership site. Make it very obvious in the beginning, this is a business, I'm trying to make money. And people are quite positive with that, which shows how much the market has changed in the past 13, 14 years, because when we first introduced the Vault, people were mad. How dare you charge for content, you evil, evil person. Like, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't make any money. What was I thinking? Bluestra 89. Or is this Blue Straight 9 or something? I'm not sure. Is there some other way? Any plans on making some Death Watch? Is that what DW is? Dark Wing?
I was looking at that too. I have no idea.
Deadly Women? Delightsome Wimblebees? I assume that you say Death Watch. I'm wanting to start my delightful Wimbleby army. That's weird. I don't know why you...
Okay.
Obviously Death Watch. I know. But stuck on how I should deck out my veterans, and if I don't know anything about Death Watch, I'm sorry.
Email Josh.
Yeah, email Josh. Josh is all about Death Watch.
Mic still good? I feel like it just popped off. My mic just popped off.
Sorry for the noise. Sorry. Are you wearing your headphones? See.
It just popped right off there.
I don't even know why. It's not even like it's strained or anything.
I no longer have the noise canceling for the speakers.
So it's weird listening to it. Oh, freaking. Yeah, that's why. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry about that. StarMex, Matt, on the subject of 9th or 8.5 edition, what are some of the things you absolutely want her to change from 8th edition 40K? Start from scratch. Again, what I would love... See, the problem isn't the rule set. The problem is the meta. When you can build... and Space Marines is the big offender, I find. It's like when you can build an army that has the firing capability to delete your opponent's army in your first shooting phase, I mean, that's a problem. I would get rid of everything that penalizes close combat. I would remove Overwatch. You already got to shoot me, all right? Deal with it. I would remove... Well, falling back, I think I would put some more caveats on, like a vehicle shouldn't have to fall back to fire its weapons, depending on the vehicle, as long as it's a big enough vehicle. But also things like, hey, I don't know, there's got to be a bit more to it. I don't want it to get too complicated. Like, I think of things like, it's dumb that one Termagant holds up your whole line from shooting their non-pistol weapons. But the other part of me thinks it's dumb that when I get my Gene Stealers all around your one guy and he just is like, whoop, and everybody else shoots at them. But then it's dumb that they can't be shot at. I don't know. The falling back, the combination of Overwatch and falling back, and then stratagems that let you fall back and shoot, which are prevalent among Space Marines, what a surprise, means that close combat is just not part of the game. And so when close combat is not part of the game, it becomes an arms race for who can shoot the most. And that, to me, is a bit of a problem. So, yeah, I would definitely strengthen close combat. Like, if I could go back and reboot 40K from scratch, I would take pretty much every range of every weapon and half it. Just make it shorter range. So it demonstrates that the killing range is much slower. I know, who cares about the actual realism of it? Whatever, this game. We're playing on a 4x6 table. In actual realism, that's like playing... Have you ever gone to a Walmart parking lot? Do you know how big a table I would need to represent a Walmart parking lot in 28 mil scale? It would actually probably be like 10 of these tables to represent a Walmart parking lot. I remember actually working it out because I was making a post-apocalyptic one and I wanted there to be parking lots and stuff, and I'm like, wait a second. This could literally just be parking lot, and that would only be a part of a regular parking lot at a mall or a Walmart or something like that. So let's not worry about scale, like, well, it doesn't make sense they can't shoot what they can see with a gun, which obviously, it's like, who cares? It's a game, so we can abstract it. So I would shorten the range of a lot of the weapons. I don't know, it just seems to be too much of a shooting game. So you can try to overcome that by putting more terrain on the table, but and it's, I don't know. I know the Iron Hands were the big offender at first. They're not the only offender anymore, or even the biggest one. Things like, hey, we've created this really cool rule system with pistol weapons, assault weapons, heavy weapons, rapid fire weapons, grenades, that kind of stuff. And it's a really neat dynamic how they all work. If you have a heavy weapon, then basically you're penalized for moving. If you have an assault weapon, that's the one that's meant to be used on the fly. Rapid fire are kind of in between that. Pistols are all about getting in close and fighting with those. Grenades are grenades, obviously. But then when you create armies, they're like, oh, by the way, we just ignore that it's heavy. Oh, and we ignore that this. Oh, and rapid fire normally says you have to be within half, but these guys can just get it all the time. And oh, and this, and it's just, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And it's like, we're just going to ignore all these cool basic rules that make a good core game. I find that for every miniature war game out there, that the longer it's out, the more it ignores its own core rules, and the more it deviates from that, the less interesting it is, and the harder it is to balance the game. Age of Sigmar, I see things like the Bone Reapers come out, and they just flat out ignore Battle Shock. It was already bad enough that all the other Death Armies were Leadership 10, or Bravery 10, which doesn't make any sense, and can bring back a gajillion guys per turn. Or all the Demon Armies, for some reason, are Bravery 10. Which is nonsense. Same thing with Necrons being super high leadership. I don't like that. It's like you got these really cool core mechanics, and now we're just gonna, And so, yeah. And maybe Space Marines are just the biggest offenders. I'm not sure, but it feels a lot like it's gotten bloaty. But I like bloated games. I like lots of choices. So I don't think that's the main problem. Maybe it's just Space Marines. It's really hard to put a finger on it, but maybe it's just that. Maybe that's just the biggest problem, is they just need to kind of reset the balance of the game. But how do you do that without full restarting the game like they did in 8th edition? I doubt that they would do that. If there is 9th edition coming out, I doubt that it'll be a true 9th. I think it'll be more like previous editions where it's like an 8.5 kind of thing. Oh, it's 3 o'clock. Shoot, I'm running out of time. I actually have to go film. All right, let's power through a few questions. Good Howler. So this is what do we call this round? Lightning round? Lightning round. Good. What's that? Oh yeah, I'll close the queue. Close the queue. Good Howler. May have already been mentioned, but any contingency plans for coronavirus? Yeah. No. We don't know what we're going to do if they shut us down. Hack and Slash. Beside the inefficiency of the content production costs, could you guys make a 4-way game with you, Dave, Steve, and Luca or Vito? Of course we could, besides the inefficiency of it. Midgard Painter. Do you think you'll ever bring back the painting partner program? As a commissioned painter myself, I see it as a great opportunity for gaining. It's just the PR-wise, I think it's a great program and it had a lot of value, but just between the PR and the fact that we ended up having worked with a lot of bad painters, some that even stole our miniatures, others who just did a bad enough job that you might as well throw out the miniatures, that it just wasn't worth it. So we're just working with the locals right now. Mikey Venges, what would you like to see in Age of Sigmar content from Games Workshop? More supplements and campaigns, new factions like the Lumineth, other? I want all of that. I'd say campaigns. But like ways to really play campaigns in leagues with your friends. Dix51, hello again. Are you going to play another campaign of Deathwatch or something close to it? Maybe, no plans. And lastly, Lord and Forden, what do you think about Gloomspike kits? I have been thinking about starting them. Are they any good or interesting? I love Gloomspike kits. I really like them a lot. Are they any good? They have really good stuff and mediocre stuff and bad stuff. In this order. MoonClan, good. Trogoths, mediocre. The Spiderfang, bad. And even amongst the MoonClan, there's different ways to do them well. Like not everything is equal amongst that. Most overpowered thing in that book is just bringing lots of grots. They're quite powerful and a little too unkillable for my taste. But I love everything in Gloomspike kits. Well, there's our bonus round. I unfortunately have to stop now so I can fortunately go and continue filming Necromunda. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Remember, next week is Josh, so leave comments for him on the video, and happy wargaming.